Welcome to the VCU-ACE Autism 101 Parenting Series. The topic for this Autism 101 parenting presentation is play. In this presentation, we will discuss the role families have in helping children play, strategies to support play, and tips for using these strategies at home and in the community. Play is an essential part of childhood and helps children develop in many different areas. Every child needs play in their life, and that includes children with autism. Play is a foundational skill that begins early in life. Through play, very young children build a variety of skills like fine motor skills, learning cause and effect, taking turns, and even problem solving. Through play, even very young children can learn about the world and everything in it, including scientific and mathematical concepts. Play is also how children learn to interact with others. Play is a way that children build their knowledge base and express what they know and what they've learned. In other words, play is a way for children to show what they know. There are also many different stages of play and types of play, and each one serves a very real purpose in a child's development. It's not necessary to know each and every stage and type of play. Just know that at different times in their life, children may want to play by themselves, watch others play next to others, play with the same equipment, like at the playground, and play more interactive types of games and activities. There can also be play that revolves around building or constructing things, play that involves imagination, and games with elaborate rules. But it's important to note that children with ASD do not always progress through the same stages of play as their peers and may not always play in the same ways. Young children with ASD sometimes struggle with play skills. Sometimes play is very limited for children with ASD. Due to the characteristics of ASD, the way a child thinks about the world might be very black and white and very concrete. Children with ASD are often very literal and may also display a need for routines and rituals. We can often see this in how a child with ASD plays. Play can be very repetitive or only involve one toy used over and over again, sometimes in an unusual manner. For example, a child with ASD might spin the tire on a toy truck but not push the truck around the room saying vroom vroom. While all children may have a type of play they enjoy more than others or have a favorite toy they play with again and again, typically developing children will continue to develop more complex play skills. However, children with ASD may need support from adults to learn how to expand their play, to learn how to play with certain toys, and to learn how to play with their peers. So where do you begin? How can you support play in a variety of different ways? First, start by using strengths and interests. All children have strengths and interests. However, sometimes understanding what these are is not always obvious for children with ASD. Next, use visual supports. Sometimes children do not intuitively understand how to use a toy. A visual support can be a useful reference. You'll also want to follow a child's lead. When we join in with what a child is doing and let them take the lead, we encourage engagement. What else can you do? Well, first you can label play by commenting on what a child is doing while playing. This can help build connections with what they are doing and what toys they are using. You'll also want to imitate what your child is doing during play. Imitation also helps create engagement and may also encourage your child to imitate you later. Establish joint attention so that you are both looking at and paying attention to the same thing. Some other things you can do include model new ways to play. Some children get stuck in playing a certain way and may need you to model new ways to use a toy. Another thing you can do is provide choices as you play. Providing choices helps empower a young child and gives them control over how you play together, but also gives the child an opportunity to interact with you. Finally, gently sabotaging play can help initiate interactions and facilitate problem solving. Let's go through each one of these in a little more depth. Use a child's strengths and interests. If you've watched anything else at VCU-ACE, you'll know that we constantly emphasize this point across a variety of different topics. That's because it's so important. We all do better and are more motivated to do things when activities start with something we excel at or with something we are interested in and enjoy. The child with ASD is no different. The first step is to believe that the child has strengths and interests. Sometimes it is not always obvious what a child's strengths are or what they are interested in. However, that doesn't mean a child does not have any strengths and does not mean a child does not have any interests. Sometimes we really have to observe children and watch closely to understand more about their abilities and how they express interest and enjoyment. It's also important to know that some children with ASD have unusual strengths that we don't often associate with childhood and may express unusual interests. As adults supporting children with ASD, we need to embrace these unusual strengths and interests and incorporate these into learning and life. If a child has an interest in flipping the light switch off and on, that is something that can be considered when looking at toys with switches and buttons that might attract their attention. There are some strengths that are often associated with ASD. Take a second to think about some of the strengths listed in this graphic. Does your child display any of these strengths? Does your child display visual thinking, pattern recognition, thinking outside the box, being precise, having intense concentration, being honest, perception and motion skills, passionate interests, being punctual, being a problem solver, being reliable, being loyal, having integrity, having in-depth knowledge of subjects, being fact-driven, enjoying repetition, being technologically oriented, being deliberate, being detail-oriented, being unconcerned with fads, being direct, following rules, being logical, or having splinter skills like highly developed skills in a particular area, and having a strong memory. Once that you believe, recognize, and accept your child's strengths and interests, you'll want to incorporate those into helping your child play. For example, if your child has a strength in pattern recognition, but no clear interest in toys yet, you might want to consider something like Legos and building blocks. If your child enjoys repetition and likes watching things move, consider a toy like a downhill track. Using a child's strengths and interests helps build engagement. Some children with ASD will need to use a visual support because they do not intuitively understand how to play with a toy. A visual support is simply a tool that either uses a photograph, graphic, or drawing that shows a child what to do. Some children may have strengths in pattern recognition and might enjoy playing with Lego blocks, but they might not fully understand what to do if someone hands them red and white blocks. Using a visual support can help a child understand ways they might play with a toy. This doesn't mean your child will not ever learn to play with a toy in novel ways. It just means that some children might need a starting point and need a visual support to show them where and how to start. Show and model how to play with toys using a visual support as a guide. For example, we can create a visual support that shows a child different shapes they can build with blocks. As you can see from the picture of an example of visual supports being used with wooden blocks, all that we are doing is providing a starting point. Using a visual support can help a child see how a toy can be played with. After showing a child a visual support of something like how to play with blocks, you'll want to model how to put the blocks together and to make the shape in the visual support. Follow a child's lead during play. As parents, sometimes we tend to want to direct the play and tell a child what to do. We want to avoid giving directions though. When a child is playing with a toy, even if it might be repetitively at first, try not to interrupt the flow of the play. Instead, try waiting to see what the child does with their play and with toys, and then join in on what they are doing. By joining in on a play a child is already engaged in, you can create a shared positive experience. Notice and respond. When you join in on a child's play and let the child take the lead, you'll want to be observant during this time. You'll want to notice the little things and the unspoken things. As parents and caregivers, we sometimes rely on spoken words too much during our play with children. We tend to listen for what the child says during play rather than look for movements, body language, facial expressions, postures, and gestures. These are all forms of nonverbal communication and can be incredibly important. Some children with ASD struggle with being able to verbally describe what is happening during play or while using a toy, and you'll want to focus on any nonverbal information the child provides. Notice and then respond with a comment, not a question. If a child reaches for a toy bear, you can simply comment with, "I want the bear." Label the play. While playing with your child, you can provide labels to items and actions, and at times describe what is happening while your child is playing. For children with ASD, this can help provide some meaning and context to the items and actions happening. Remember, children with ASD can struggle with communication, and this includes understanding what words to use for different activities. By labeling items and actions, you can help frame what they are playing with and what they are doing with words. One note of caution, though. We don't want you to turn into an ESPN reporter. We don't want you to narrate every move, and you don't have to say things like, "Jimmy just picked up the dinosaur. Now he is moving to the bucket. He is taking the bucket to the shelf." Rather, let the child take the lead. Imitate their actions, notice what they are doing, respond, and label specific items or actions when they are important. This might include something like, if your child picks up the dinosaur, you can simply say "dinosaur" as they look at it. Or if they drive the car down the steep, curvy track, you can say, "The car goes down and around." Imitate your child's play. If your child has some play skills, even if very limited, you can imitate their actions during play. By imitating a child's actions, you can build off that engagement and create opportunities to learn. And when you imitate a child, they may be more likely to imitate your actions too, which is definitely something that we can work with. Next, establish joint attention. Joint attention just means that you are both paying attention to the same item. Families and caregivers often develop joint attention skills without even knowing it. For example, when families read bedtime stories to their children every night, both child and parent are focused on the same book. However, it's important to realize joint attention does not often develop quite so easily for children with ASD. Sometimes families and educators have to target this skill specifically through various activities. One way to do this during play is to be at eye level, or hold up a toy near your face and at eye level. Remember, we want to share an experience and be looking at the same item in order to create joint attention. So being on a child's level or holding a toy near your face at eye level can be a helpful tool. Model new ways to play. Recognize that children may get stuck in how they play or use a toy. In this case, families may want to gently shape how the child plays with the toy or show them other ways to use it. If your child is spinning the wheels on a truck over and over, you can join in on the activity, get down on their level, and imitate their actions. While you are imitating them, you can notice and respond to any movements or body language. You can comment on the wheels go round and round, but you can also model new ways to play. You can spin the wheels like they are doing, but then you can also move the truck around in a circle on the ground while saying, "Vroom, vroom." Provide choices during play. Providing choices can help a child feel empowered and in control of what is happening, but it also gives you an opportunity to engage and interact with your child. If you want to encourage play, try giving your child a choice between dinosaurs and dolls. You might need to use a visual support to help the child see what you are saying. Or if your child is playing with toy trains, try to hold up two different trains near eye level and asking the child, "Do you want the blue train or the green train?" It doesn't always have to be a series of never-ending choices because we don't want to interrupt the flow of play too much, but do try to include these options every so often. Gently sabotage a child's play. This does not mean we want you to put up a series of barriers to whatever your child is doing. That would be an incredibly frustrating way to live. What it does mean is to capitalize on certain events that you know might create an interaction and an opportunity for your child to request or make a choice. Sometimes just asking a child if they want the blue train or green train will not provoke a response. By gently sabotaging the environment, we can encourage the child to interact during play. Let's look at some examples of this. This might mean storing some toys just out of reach. If you and your child clean up toys every night and you store these up on a shelf, then when your child gets up in the morning and is ready to play, they'll need you to help them. This is a perfect time to model communication and provide an opportunity for the child to communicate their choice. Plus, they are naturally rewarded with the item they wanted, and it helps strengthen or reinforce the communication they just used. You can also withhold certain items or toys that a child might need during an activity. This can create a scenario where your child must request something, or you can model requesting. An example of this might include a particular train track or a puzzle piece that a child needs during play. Now, keep in mind you aren't playing keep away here. You might have the item in your hand or hidden under your leg while you model, "I need the track," or "I need the puzzle piece." Provide the hidden item immediately. If your child is able to say track or puzzle, you can simply expand on that to say, "I need track," or "I need puzzle," as you hand the item over. So, what are some tips that might help families be successful in supporting their child's play? Let's go over a few that might help. Create a balance between free play and supported play. Most of us believe that as children develop, they will naturally gravitate towards toys and playing. And that is developmentally true for most children. However, children with ASD may not always intuitively and naturally play with toys in a variety of ways without a little support. While free play is certainly a goal for all of our children, we may need to balance that out for children with ASD by supporting their needs with everything we just talked about today. You don't always have to be at your child's side supporting and expanding their play. We know families are way too busy to be their child's constant play coach. And we know that children with ASD deserve time on their own without interruption. Create a balance between these things by being there when you can and capitalizing on your time playing with your child. Life is about balance. This part of your child's life is no different. As parents and caregivers, if we aren't trying to direct play, then sometimes we are often bombarding a child with WH questions. While playing with your child, we want you to avoid too many WH questions, though. For starters, it makes a child feel like they just stumbled into a pop quiz. What's this? What color is that? Why did you put the doll in that room? This can interrupt the flow of play, and frankly, it can be irritating. Imagine you are engaging in whatever recreation you enjoy for some downtime, something like, say, volleyball at a cookout. Would you enjoy it if your friends asked you a series of WH questions during the game? Why did you hit the ball that way? Where are you going to hit it to next? What did you do to hit the ball so hard? As you can imagine, too many WH questions are not fun for anyone. Prompt the child into using toys or playing. For example, you can first ask a child which dinosaur they would like to play with. Next, you can point to each one, and then you will want to pause and wait. If your child doesn't communicate a choice, you can silently prompt with a point to each one again. If your child doesn't communicate a choice, you can also use a verbal prompt, like just saying blue or green. If your child still doesn't communicate a choice, you can also try a physical prompt, like holding their hand and pointing to each one. Use praise and reinforcement while playing. Remember, reinforcement simply means to make something stronger. So when we reinforce a child while they're playing, we increase the likelihood that that child will do that again. Reinforcement is not bribery. Sometimes it is planned ahead of time, and sometimes reinforcement will be naturally occurring because when a child requests a toy, they get the toy and will play with something they enjoy. But other times we have to add some reinforcement, and this might include something like using praise, giving extra hugs, giving a high five, or using something else that the child really enjoys to keep them motivated. Be consistent in your efforts. Consistency is key for children with ASD. They thrive in a routine environment, and they do well when they know what to expect. If family members are consistently using these techniques, the child will have a better opportunity to learn vital play skills. Looking for more information? Visit our website at www.vcuautismcenter.org and check out our resources.